Welcome back to The Way of the Laser. My name's JMauler. I'll be your host and your guide while we learn about laser coding. Last time, we learned how to create your first laser, your very first laser. This time, we'll actually make it move and learn more about the variables inside. Let's get started. I want you all to pull up your code and follow along with me so you can learn by doing. Right now, we're going to talk about how to make different laser patterns, and that is all in spawnable class. Spawnable class has 18 different types. Right now it's 1A. That means there's one node with one attached laser. If I were to change this to 2A, go back into Laser League, refresh, and load it up, my laser will now be double-sided. So let's change that back to a 1A, and then copy all of it and put it as a separate laser. Make sure you comma after this curly brace, or else your code will not work. We also want to make sure that they're not on top of each other. So we need to change where it actually lives, or where it's on the grid, on the map. To do that, we can change this variable right here. It says my first laser, which is the same name as this. These have to be the same name. That is what's called a transform. A transform is anything that has a translation and rotation, which is exactly this. So we can create a new one by putting a comma, my second laser, open the curly brace, enter, rotation, colon, 0, because we're always keeping rotation as 0, translation, open curly brace again, and then let's set up our X, our Y, and our Z. Now if we go back into Laser League real quick, we could see that there is a huge grid of a ton of dots. The very center dot where the switch is right now is at 0, 0. If you put in X equals 0, Y equals 0, it will be in the center of the map. The further down along the X you go, the more positive it is. The lower down, or to the left, that's where the X's become negative. Same with the Y. So if you go down, it goes negative. If you go up, it goes positive. You can go to about 1,800 in the X direction and 1,000 in the Y direction. So if we change our first value, our X, to negative 1,600 and our Y to about 800, that will be in the top left corner. So our first laser will move to the top left corner. Let's put in zeros for this right now, and we'll come back to it later. Let's just check to see if we did it correctly, if our first laser is in the top left corner. And it is. It is in the top left corner. Now you might have seen right there, there was another laser there. There's actually two lasers on this dot. That is because we forgot to change this. You see, there's two lasers on the exact same position. So if we change that to my second laser instead, just copy paste. Now it should, if we reset, it should be in a different location. It should be at 0, 0. And perfect, it is. So let's change that to a 2A just to make sure. And let's make it go right next to our other laser up there. So let's move it over by about 300 in the X direction. Reset one more time. And our first laser comes, and then our second laser comes. Perfect. Now, why is it coming a little bit later than the first laser? Well, that's easy. That's our delay variable. You see, it has a 3 next to it, which means it waits 3 seconds before it spawns in. That's necessary for the first one because we need to delay it for 3 seconds for the countdown. But everything after that will take every delay before it into account. So this second laser will actually be delay of 6, not delay of 3. So if we change it to delay of 0, it's actually a delay of 3. So if we reset one more time, they spawn in at the same time. And that's perfect. Now let's learn how to move them. I see movement path points name, but it's just spawning in that location. It's not moving at all. And that's because our movement type is on none right now. So if we copy all this, copy the second laser, make sure to add a comma before you paste it in, and change the movement type to loop path. But before we go any further, I need to talk about something that's very important. And it might not seem like it's too much of an issue right now, but trust me, if you have 1,000 lines of code, it will be important. Naming conventions. You see, our description means literally nothing to the code. It's just for your sanity. As you can see, they're all the same right now. It could be literally anything as long as there's a quote. As long as there's a quote and a comma after, it doesn't matter what's inside it. So you can name your laser whatever you like. What I like to do is say what the laser is. So it's a horizontal laser or a static laser. So let's say horizontal static. Usually I add an underscore and then how big the laser is compared to how big it's going to get. So since this one doesn't change sizes, I'll just leave this at a 1, underscore again, and then the index of the laser. The index of the laser is a hidden number that you cannot see, but here's how it works. The first laser in the list is laser 0. The second laser in the list is laser 1. The third laser in the list is laser 2. And it goes on and on and on, up by 1 each time. When we talk about node remains until index. IDX means index. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but for now, all you need to know is the index starts at 0, not 1. So let me change all of these. Now there's a couple more things we need to do before the laser can move. We need to set up 2 different point names, or transforms, as we're calling it. So let's do that first. We can copy this, make sure to add a comma again, because we need 2 of them. And now you see the green underline. That means there's something of the same name. My second laser shows up 3 times. You cannot have the same name as another transform. So let's change this to movement 1 and movement 2. Let's make it go up and down. So let's move this over, let's say by 500, so it's at negative 800. Do the same here. And let's move this down to 200. Now if we go back to where the laser lives and say movement 1, after the quote, add a comma and another quote, movement 2, that will mean the laser spawns in at movement 1 and then moves to movement 2. Because loop path is set for movement type, it will loop around back to the first one. So once it ends at movement 2, it will go back to movement 1. Now, one more thing we need to do. We need to set the speed. The game recommends 300 to 800, and I think that's a pretty good estimate of how fast your lasers are going to move. The movement speed of the player characters are about 1,200. So let's say movement speed for this is 300. And that's it. Now we can go back to Laser League, reset the match. And now we have a third laser. If we move over this laser, it starts to move. It goes down and then back up, and then down again, and then back up. And it will just repeat this until end of time. Now, one more small thing before we end here. Let's copy this. Make sure to add a comma. Make sure to do your naming conventions as they were. And I want this laser to start to move immediately as a node. Well, let's name what it actually is going to do. So start move. It'll be one size and it's indexed 3. It's still a 2A. I still want loop path, but I will need to change these. Go up. Let's copy both of these. Let's move a little faster. And we could copy this to paste it in here. And do the same here, just with 2. Now, how do you actually start moving as a node? Well, it's very simple, actually. You just change this movement starts when spawned. Right now it's false. You change that to true. Now, if we reset again, we will have a fourth laser. And the movement starts immediately. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And have a good one.